The question we're going to try to answer today is, should you play MapleStory Classic when it comes out? And the answer to that is yes, you should. Thanks for watching. On a more serious note, this video is not for my classic enthusiasts, of course, because they are already getting their medical leaves ready when the game comes out. This is more for MapleStory players who play the current version of the game and non-MapleStory players who are curious if it is worth trying in 2025 or 2026 when the game comes out. And I'm here to give you some facts about the game that may help you make the right decision, talk about some of the positives of the classic version experience of MapleStory, and some of the negatives, of course, in case they might be negatives for you. Some people may find them in a positive note, but it depends on your personality and everything, and what kind of experience in a classic version of a game you would like to have. So let's get started. So let's talk about the aesthetics of the game. It is true that the game is old and with 2D graphics, and this is something that some people may not find as appealing, especially for an MMORPG, but it has a soothing and inviting atmosphere that it truly makes you feel that you're in a magical land. So let's take a look a little bit at some of these backgrounds of these maps, for example. They go quite well with the 2D graphics, and it gives you a strong identity to each map you visit. And what I mean by this is, like, let's say you visit some kind of dungeon or some kind of cave, for example. The background of that area blends in so much with the platform elements of the 2D game. It makes you feel that you are really diving into a cave or into a dungeon. And sometimes, for example, let's say that you are like in an open world with like a farm kind of area, for example. You can see farms in the background or mushroom houses in the background, and it makes you feel like you are in this land. It blends in so well with the 2D graphics that you are like presented with, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about the aesthetics of the game that is kind of unique in that sense. You have examples like Animal Well, a game with simple graphics and yet quite appealing to the eyes. People love the graphics of this game, and so do I actually. And the reason why I use it as an example to compare MapleStory's graphics is that they could look simple and not quote-unquote as appealing at the beginning, but they grow on you quite fast as you keep playing the game, and it does not feel as overwhelming as other modern games feel when you start playing them. If you take a look at the characters, for example, they have this simple looking drawn style, and some people may find them a little bit childish looking and not quote-unquote badass enough, but they kind of go very well with the 2D graphics and the whole universe together. It's one of those things that at the beginning people hesitate to try the game because of that, but let me tell you, after time and after you keep playing the game, it really grows on you and you see that everything matches together so nicely. The skills of the game is something quite interesting as well to look at, because they have such better graphics in comparison to anything else that surrounds them that it makes you feel so nice when you use them against mobs or just to look at them. And I'm telling you, like, as you keep playing the game and you just start seeing all of these things matching up together, you start seeing the beauty and the aesthetic of the game quite well. I want to get one thing out of the way, and that is the game is old and grindy. Yes, this is true, you probably have heard this before, and especially the classic version, every single level feels like an accomplishment whenever you do so. You will have to kill a lot of mobs in order to progress in the game. However, killing mobs in this game particularly is not as bad as it sounds, and it was something that I was thinking about as I was making this video. Especially in this game and age we're living right now, killing mobs, like so many mobs, and just grinding that way is not as bad. This has to do with something that I will call, in this case, background gaming, where you're playing your game and on the second monitor you have some kind of podcast or video or audio or whatever discussion, whatever you're listening to, where you're paying attention to both things, but you do this because probably the game that you're playing is not as entertaining at that moment or not as demanding when it comes to your attention. In the past, I remember when I used to play MapleStory back in 2007, I did not have that option, obviously, of having two monitors, and I would get very sleepy after too much grinding in the game, and I started nodding off because it was too much, right? I was playing a classic version recently on the game, however, where I was watching a video on my second monitor, and let me tell you, the experience was way different. I was getting way less sleepy, and in those, like I said, grinding moments where you don't really need that much attention, that helps quite a lot. Sometimes in this game and age, you just want to chill and play something casual, and you want to watch something on your monitor, or there's a series that you want to watch, but at the same time you kind of want to play because you don't only want to watch the series. So this is something very common in this game and age, and you don't want to play something like Dota 2 or League of Legends or something demanding, because you would lose the game or you would probably not enjoy it as much. So this is where games like MapleStory Classic, for instance, would come really handy, because these grinding sessions would be perfect for it. You're just watching your thing while you're grinding a little bit, and you're just like enjoying both things at the same time, and it feels so much better. A lot of MMORPGs are about getting to the end game as soon as possible and forget about the early game, and we just want you to do this particular part of the game because it's really important for us for you to enjoy our game. But in MapleStory Classic, you can take your own time and do your own thing at your own pace. You can say something like, I want to get a specific drop from a specific mob, and I will grind that mob until I get that drop. And let me tell you, when you see that drop, it is such a satisfying feeling. This is because in MapleStory, every level bracket has important drops for you to care about regarding the late game. This is not very common because, like, in every game, whenever you get to the late game, that's the gear that you care about, those are the drops that you care about, and normally not that many of the early drops or early mobs, if you will, matter that much. Yes, they have certain components that you may need to grind to get a specific profession level up, but the reality is you don't get excited if you get an equipment or something like that. Whereas in MapleStory, every mob has different drops that are important, even late stages of the game. For instance, like scrolls. Scrolls of 10% or 60% can drop from mobs of level 20, and those drops, you can use them late in the game to craft your weapon, to make your weapons or gear better in any way. And that's something that it feels so satisfying whenever you see those drops. And it is true that later drops may be more appealing or perhaps more expensive or more important, but early game drops are also quite good. And like I said before, the game focuses on grinding, and every level is kind of like an accomplishment after some point. And because of this, like, you enjoy every aspect of what you're doing. You know how when you walk into a town in an MMORPG like World of Warcraft or something like that, the chat is flooded with people selling shit and with things that you do not give a shit about, and the chat is on the bottom left corner of the screen, which makes it even less appealing to just check in case you're actually looking for something and look at what people are talking about. Well, in MapleStory Classic, you walk into a town and you see people sitting on chairs and having conversations, and the best part about it is that you see a speech bubble come out like in a cartoon or something, which invites you to eavesdrop the hell out of those combos and perhaps join them in some way. I remember in the past, I used to walk into, let's say, Hennessy's or any big town in MapleStory, and I was just going from point A to point B, maybe to buy pots or whatever, and I see a group of people having a conversation, and I was just like, because it was in the middle of the screen, it was a huge speech bubble on the screen, I was just like, took a glance of what they were talking about, and they were talking about probably a topic of, oh, I hate to grind these mobs or whatever. And I kind of like, if I had the same opinion, I kind of like stop and say, hi everybody, I just want to say that I have the same opinion like you, and just like join the combo just like that. It's like, hey, that's cool, what's your name, what are you up to, is this your main character, do you have a secondary character? And then you just like started having conversation just about that, about anything else, and it just, like I said, join discussions just out of the blue, because like the fact that it's like these white speech bubbles that come out of the characters in a very nice way, it makes you kind of like your eyes straight up look at those. Whereas if you just like look at the chat on the bottom left, which by the way, MapleStory does have a chat on the bottom left, you don't kind of like look at that part that much. Sometimes like friends of mine like send me a whisper or something in the game, and I may not just look at it right away, or I may just miss it because it just is a whisper in the chat, unless I'm expecting the whisper, but it's just like something that you miss all the time on the left corner of the screen. And I want to clarify that obviously games like World of Warcraft, when you kind of like walk like close by someone and you kind of say something like hi or whatever, there is kind of like a speech bubble that comes out, yes, but you don't see it like from very far away. Like if you really you have to get really close in order for you to just see it. Whereas in MapleStory, the moment someone enters on the screen, the moment you see someone on the screen, you see the speech bubble coming out, which, like I said, looks way more inviting than games like World of Warcraft. It is true, like applications like Discord are not gonna make the game that social anymore. Like any MMO that used to be super social in the past, it's not gonna be as social right now because we have other means to communicate with our friends or maybe acquaintances that we meet through Discord. However, in MapleStory's case, because of the speech bubble aspect and how inviting and in your face it is, it's something that it will still remain, I believe, even though it's not gonna remain as much as before, but it will still remain where you're walking through a town, you see that speech bubble in your face and you just read it because it invites you to read it, or you are on a boat waiting for some kind of, like I said, boat from point A to point B, and you're just like having a conversation with the random people in the boat, or perhaps there are some people having a random conversation in the boat and you just join because they speak the same language to you, like if English is not your mother tongue, or they're talking about something that you care. And those are the things that I think will not die, even though we have things like Discord right now. The last thing I want to talk about is MapleStory is one of the top old MMOs out there, like World of Warcraft and RuneScape. Perhaps not as popular, of course, as those two, but still quite big, especially being an MMO so old and kind of the same age as World of Warcraft. The fact that they will release a classic version of the game, just as they did with the previous two games that I mentioned before, these two giants, is something to get hyped about, and it will give you an opportunity to experience what it was like to play MapleStory back then. With some quality of life changes, of course, because back then there were a bunch of broken stuff that didn't work that they will make sure to fix, because the game will not come out, like I said, broken. I mean, the game was in pieces, in different sections, in different parts, different aspects that were not actually as good, and they're making sure that they align with more modern like styles of gaming. So in case you miss that chance of trying this classic Maples experience, like perhaps you wanted to join but it was too late, this will be the best moment to do so. The game will be flooded with new players, and joining early will give you a nice perspective into the game and what it used to be like. And you can maybe join later, that's fine, but joining early, just like in this like beginning, everybody is a noob kind of and trying things and just like low level, and seeing all of that yourself is something beautiful that other games like old school RuneScape and World of Warcraft Classic gave you the opportunity to do. So that's basically it for today's video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the videos that I've been making and for liking and subscribing and all of that. You can just keep doing that if you keep enjoying this kind of content. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe, like I said, and I'll keep coming up with new concepts or new kind of ideas and thoughts that I have as you know, they keep developing. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.